Morning, Mike. How you doing? April 23rd.
Hi, Steve. I'm good. How are you today?
I'm doing very well. I'm very nervous. As I said to you before we got on, we went live. You basically come on 2 minutes before, and I get nervous at that point because I don't know what your mental state's going to be these days,
Yeah,
and I don't know what curveballs you're going to throw, but it's always fun. It's always game. And it just, it lets the audience know that while they're listening to this, we don't know what's going to happen.
no
And
planning,
that's quite
no
literally
script.
what. That's quite literally, and it probably they can attest to that, given the quality of the content that we do produce.
That's right.
So
That's
so
right.
that's all right. So
It's
I
what
think
you
if you want to,
expect from
yeah, you get what you
hashtag
pay.
OSW Daily Live.
And as I always tell people, you get exactly what you pay for.
That's right. That's right. You paid
So
us. You paid zero to get into this. We're
yeah,
going to give you. We might give you a 50-cent show. We might
maybe,
go above and
maybe.
beyond what you paid.
There you go. There
The
you go. Who
value here.
knows? Let's go. Let's go. Let's think about it. But I gotta let you see this because I just literally just got this message through to me, and I saw it and I sniggered and I had a little giggle. So
Okay.
someone who reached out to me says, "Are you an executive or business owner over 45? Do you want to look good, feel better, and perform better? Then contact me." I'm like, wow,
Wow.
maybe people are watching this and more than we think, and actually go, yeah, he needs some help. So
That was
anyway,
on
I
our.
just
That was
thought,
on the YouTube stream. There was a chat in
no,
there.
no, that
Oh,
was
okay.
on LinkedIn. That was on
Okay.
LinkedIn, but
All right.
it just goes to show you, man, people are concerned about my health and well-being and how I look, so that's good.
It's funny. You got that message. I got a message from the Prince of Africa that wants me to help him move multiple millions of dollars out of the country. And I thought, wow, I'm honored. It's a great privilege to be asked that. So I
Is that
just
a
sent him my
commission
social
program
security
or
number.
how's
Yeah,
that
I sent him
work?
my social security number and my bank account information, and we'll see what happens.
There you go, man. Good luck with that one. I love it. I love it. So yesterday, your live stream,
Yes,
K
sir.
Sergeant, HOK. How did that go?
Fantastic. Wow. Well, it's funny. Not all fantastic. We had a technical glitch. We lost Kay's video about halfway through the hour,
Mm,
and she used it as the professional she is. She continued to be heard. We could hear her audibly. So I did a quick fix and threw her picture up on the screen because we couldn't get her video to show up. But she said, this is an example of this new world we're living in, the
yeah.
work from home reality. Just because the technology exists doesn't mean A, it's going to work, and doesn't mean B, everybody knows how to use it. In fact, she talked about giving a Porsche to a teenager and saying, in a lot of ways, our organizations have invested greatly in with Zoom and other things, but we spend a lot of money creating these digital portals, and most folks don't know how to use it, and
Mm.
they're teenagers behind the wheel of a high performance vehicle. So it's kind
I
of a
mean,
funny thing.
yeah. Just
Have
just
you
sort of
experienced
interrupt
that
you.
that analogy? Does that ring true?
No, but honestly, if the company wants to send me a Porsche, I'll happily drive it and give them my feedback.
Yeah.
I'm happy to do that. But no, I haven't heard that analogy before actually. But I actually think I actually go the inverse of that. I actually think employees are probably more relieved today because their organizations are relaxing the protocols around the use of digital applications and allow it. We always talk about some of the hindrances we have when they are in the office environment. Organizations are a lot stricter about the things that we do and how we use and how we, our corporate devices, what we do with those, where I think some of those things have been laxed a little bit during this time, which I think is a help. And it'll be interesting to see as time evolves how that gets adjusted. But it's, I
Yeah.
mean, but fair play to Kay to sort of roll with it and actually integrate it because it is a real issue. I had a conversation not that long ago with somebody who said exactly the same thing. Their house actually lost electricity. He was fortunate, he had a generator, but everyone around him, how do they then work in those sort of situations? Do organizations need to think, okay, what is their new BCP plans if their organization is working from home?
Yeah.
So it's a great
Real world
learning thing,
consequences.
real world.
Yeah.
So
And
so
we're just beginning to figure it all out. And that
yeah.
that was the kind of the big takeaway. Kay is famous for her articles, her blogs, her presentations, and in recent um, years, I've seen her talk about artificial intelligence, the impact on the workplace, and then before that, the big shifts taking place in the workplace, some of the cultural and dynamics that are impacting our workplaces and just the economy overall, the gig economy. Uh, things like working from home, things like um, the changing role of the facility management professional, real estate implications, all these things. So she's got this wealth of knowledge, and I only had her for an hour, and we had so many people on the webinar. It wasn't a webinar, the live stream. So many people online throwing questions at her. I had all my questions. So it went by really fast, and I need to go back and rewatch it. In fact, I'll share the link in
Oh, that'd be
to
great.
you with you. You could share it in the show notes down below, so people can check it out. But it was a whirlwind of great questions. From things like Kay's somebody who's travels 90% of her job. She's out on the road across the globe. She was in Asia, as this thing was exploding. The COVID-19 pandemic was getting its beginnings. She thinks she might have had it, much like our friend Christina Herrera in New York has said, I was sick in January, February. Don't know, haven't been tested. But those are the things that I think it was real world stories I'm hearing more and more of. I'm really anxious to see where that plays out. But yeah, we'll share the link, and I think people will get a lot of value from Kay Sargent. If they don't know her, they need to know her.
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. I look forward to watching it myself. The questions the audience had, were they tactical? Were they strategic? Were they more imminent questions, or were they future looking? Was it a blend?
It was a blend. We talked about, we kind of condensed the last 6 weeks of live streams into 1 hour. I talked because I wanted to bring Kay up to speed. It was this idea that how we, first started talking about the disruption and the cancellation of everything and all the events going away, and then the need to work from home and getting everybody ramped up for that. And then we drifted into a couple weeks of, wow, this is going to be a long journey. We're going to have a lot of people struggling with that mental health, the well-being side of this, and how can we help people, navigate this long journey through isolation, but we're all in this together, and some of those dynamics and Zoom meetings and things that we've already discussed here many times. I actually pointed people to our daily live stream. I said, there's so many things that have changed and continue to change daily that these weekly live streams just aren't enough to address them all. And then we got into this, the latest, which is the return to work and the policies. And I gave you a kind of a sneak preview yesterday of some of the questions that Kay had for the audience. And a lot of the feedback came back, well, what do I do if I am home, if I am one of these folks that has been displaced or furloughed or laid off, and I'm in the workplace profession, the real estate and facility management profession? That's my audience on the podcast each week. That's my audience on these live streams mostly. And Kay's answer was surprising. She talked about the audio visual industry, and she's sitting now on the board of an association around audiovisual technology and tools and software and applications. And she thinks there's a great opportunity there. If you want to begin upskilling, start learning new things, it's a natural progression. A lot of things you as a FM or other workplace leader have already dealt with to some degree, but to be prepared to, I don't know, get hired in the new economy post pandemic, it may be something to look into. I thought that was interesting. Do you have you
Oh,
thought about that?
absolutely.
Yeah,
No, absolutely. I think it is. And you go back to a couple of questions we discussed yesterday, right? How do people communicate? How do people collaborate? How do people tell stories in this new virtual world, right? One of the best methods for storytelling is visual, right? We do rely so much on that visual connection and sort of the body language. And I think learning and sort of those skills are immensely popular and will be in the future. And as I think about what skills are needed for workplace professionals in the future, and you think about the consulting business that offers solutions to that industry, and if we are to continue with this remote and virtual world, I think they're great skills. And I think also the other side is, do what you can to learn right now and be upskilling yourself. I mean, you're involved with IFMA. They have many learning tools, as do other organizations. So
sure.
I think it's great advice. Audio and visual, I think, is going to be a huge play in the future. You think about landlords, property owners, right? How do they sell their properties if people are reluctant to travel, reluctant to go and see their locations? The only way to do it is immersive media, right? How do you give people an experience that allows them to see that? I think it's great advice.
Yeah.
What about
And
you,
then
man?
the other,
What are you going to upskill?
I need to upskill my voice because I talk too much
Talk
and
too
I get a
much. I
frog in my
know.
throat every morning when we start this
Yeah.
conversation.
And
But and I
Go
get
on.
stressed out. I was going to say
Mm,
I need to find that new balance of this new reality. And Kay agreed with it. She said, first it was like kind of in a way, apart from the pandemic and the anxiety around the actual virus and disease, and knowing that there's people suffering out there. We all That's a given at this point in these conversations. But just in her own experience, and I could appreciate this too. I'm sure many can. When she was first sent home her trips were canceled and she was not on the road 90% of her day or her week, there was kind of a couple weeks of this is kind of nice. I'm almost getting a break from sitting in airports and trying to do my work on a laptop, in those uncomfortable setting. This is luxurious. I'm at home. I can spread out. I can. She lives over in Mount Vernon, here in the Northern Virginia, D.C. area, where George Washington, his plantation was, and his whole property there. So she walks George Washington's old backyard. So she's got great stories to tell there. No cherry trees. I keep asking her if there's a cherry tree that he chopped down. She says, no, that's a fable. But that quickly shifts to this new reality of boy, it's exhausting. It's exhausting to be on Zoom calls all day. It's exhausting to be thinking constantly, the information overload, the wow, what do you do? What does the new economy look like? And I asked her, I had a chance to ask questions about the big shifts that she was seeing. And for example, facility management. I have a really soft spot for facility managers. And I've been talking for years about the evolution of the facility management profession and the need to become more strategic and the need to be workplace leaders that can take that experience of their practitioner experience of knowing the built environment, knowing the spaces, knowing the people and how they've used the building, and then being able being a contributor to these decisions around workplace experience and employee engagement and all those things that we've talked about. And talk to your HR, colleagues, talk to your real estate and IT professionals. Make sure you're all on the same page and be the leader. Take the lead. FMs have the opportunity. And Kay was like, yeah, FM. And as things become, as budgets get squeezed in the traditional FM services area and get more pushed in other places, whether that's workplace technology or strategy and design and things, the evolution of the work of the facility management professional is going to be more of a concierge role. How can I get the services, the amenities all lined up to match what the people are expecting and meeting the needs and expectations of the occupants of our facilities? Well, she said that big shift, she alluded to it yesterday briefly. I have to follow up with her on it, but she said that shift may be going backwards now, obviously with the now new emphasis on disinfecting and cleanliness and dealing with COVID-19. Who are we all of a sudden, who's top of mind again? It's the facility services people that we've taken for granted, unfortunately, for many years, that we just expect clean facilities and we're going to build on top of it. Now that's the priority. And all of a sudden the cost, because of supply and demand and economics, is it's the budgets have to be
mm.
expanded in that area. So how this all plays out and the implications and where people need to take their experience and their expertise, whatever their role has been, whatever the role is today, and where it may be in the future, it's going to be an interesting time for all of us, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I certainly see the things that you're mentioning there. Absolutely, I see that the fruits of that in when I speak with my peers too. Um, Facility management is frontline. Often they're, well, I say often, usually they're the last people to leave the buildings and they're the first people into the buildings. That also goes for our security personnel in many buildings too, right? So they're the ones, to your point, that they're going to have to be on the front lines again, and we need to make sure that they feel safe, they feel secure. But then they also, is there an opportunity for them right now to upskill, just like you mentioned before, so that they can become that concierge leader in as things progress? Because we will get back to a new normality. We don't know what that normality looks like, but in essence, these things are circles, and that concierge service will come back. And I think many FMs today do see themselves like that. If
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but my experience is the FMs are probably the most known people in every building we go into, right? They're the ones who just know
Yep.
absolutely everybody. And a lot of it is because of the relationship that they build up over time. And Yeah, and it's funny. I was going through the other day, just thinking in my head, like I think about the facility managers in the buildings that I operate and how I see them every day, and how I'm missing just seeing their faces, their cheeky smiles, or little thing what they do, little walks that they have, just
Right.
whatever aspect of it is, you know. So yeah, it is, but it's they will become they are frontline again, and you know, just also dovetailing into what you were saying, and what Kay was saying is, you know, I released a video there this morning of an interview I did with Andrew Segal. Um, and he talked about yes, this is great right now. There are a lot of great things that people are enjoying about working from home, no commute, etc. Right. And he goes, but there's three things that we need to be careful about as we go through this process. One is distractions. So right now we're in a closed environment, but actually as the world opens up, will more distractions come into our environment? You know, we accept today dogs barking, the lawnmowers going as we're on these calls, but actually as time evolves, will we still accept that?
Mm,
Then he talks about, you know, the legal issues, because legally, you know, you work from home, an organization actually is still responsible for you and your working environment because that's where you're working. So how does that then take play? And then the third bit, which is onboarding new employees. How do new employees, when they're onboarded, feel connected to an organization because
good
they've got
point.
to work remotely? How do they get to know people in an, you know, within the organization beyond their immediate team? And that's a real struggle. And you
Yeah.
play that through your head. And I've actually, on the back of listening to that interview, I've had a conversation with a few people who have onboarded people recently, and they are concerned because it is so their tasks that they're performing are very tactical, right? Do A, B, C, D. Where if you're in an office environment, you have the ability to overhear other conversations and contribute to those conversations, but actually now you're very much in your lane. So how do we enhance that experience and give them more social interaction with other people in the organization? So it was a really, really great conversation with Andrew, and it sort of dovetailed nicely into what Kay was saying as well. So it's I almost feel like each week we go through, there is these common themes that play out each week, and
Yeah.
by the end of the week it's almost we're moving on to the next evolution of what that conversation is.
It is. And where do we go from here is the question. I've
Yeah,
tuned out. I'll tell you, Steve, I think I talked about the frustrations I was having at the beginning of the week with information overload. Here it is Thursday,
yeah.
and I'll check the nightly news for the first, 3 to 5 minutes to see what they're going to be covering, and it's all now the controversy and arguments about reopening. Are we opening too soon? And the economy, and then it becomes this political argument and regional argument and pointing fingers. Just I don't see it as anything I could contribute to. Nothing I can gain from it. I can't be an expert in all these things. I've stopped looking at the numbers. Here's the thing. Is there a point for me? I think it's happening. I'm stopped. I used to track the daily, case counts and the death numbers and the ticker that was part of our news stream. I wonder if folks out there are getting like me, fatigued, overwhelmed with information overload, because now add to that this layer of the workplace reopening, the reentry strategies, the playbooks, all this stuff being thrown at us, decisions that need to be made, the mental health and well-being, and then the cultural questions about those people who don't want to go back versus do want to go back. And it's like, I can't do it all. So let me just get back to what I can focus on and help with, which is doing these types of conversations with industry experts like Kay. But there's also folks out there, and I can actually anticipate and look forward to seeing how things evolve with like my co-host Madison, who you've met. She's that person you just mentioned.
Hmm.
She onboarded at iOffice 2 weeks before everything shut down, not even a week and a half. I think she was in the office for 1 week, maybe in a couple of days, and then we went to the work from home policy. So she didn't have that chance to build camaraderie in the Houston headquarters with other members of our marketing team, and she's been doing a lot of work. We found, certainly we've adjusted her role and adapted to this new environment, and she helps me with the live stream each week, and now she does our social media and so many other things. But she hasn't had that time in the physical space to build relationships, although she's getting to know people. We're doing a good job with Zoom. So how that plays out long term is going to be interesting to me. And because I'm just kind of overwhelmed, I don't see the value in tracking the daily numbers and trends, and I just see this argument going on about the economy, or the reopening of the economy, if you want to call it that, I'm starting to listen to things like Freakonomics Radio again. They had a new episode put out just today, this morning. I got about halfway through it, and it's such an interesting discussion around globalization in China. And we've mentioned this. We were actually in tune to this potential big shift in our world way back at the beginning. You've been kind of on top of this because you have a global perspective with your friends in Europe and so forth. But
Hmm.
with the economic impacts of this virus and what this may mean to the way we reevaluate supply chains and economic partnerships and dependence on China and just the trust factor with other countries. And that's a really interesting conversation. I'm not sure if it's appropriate for here, but what are you doing? I mean, I wonder. We haven't talked much about consumption of news media much, except in passing. You say you try to limit it sometimes with you when you're feeling down. Are you finding a good
Yeah.
balance with this information overload?
So each morning I still listen to a recap of the news from the previous day, and then I then transfer switch to something else, and I get through that in, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes, whatever that is. But to your point, where you go, it's horrible to say, but the numbers, you kind of go numb to the numbers, even though these are real people,
Mm,
real families being impacted. And what then goes through my head is, because the newscast, they provide these numbers, then they switch to people that want to open, frontline workers who did everything they can to keep people safe. And it's just, I just go through, what do those families think and what do those frontline workers think whenever they see people out protesting? And then the mind starts to lose a little bit, because to your point, right, we got to control what we think and how we think. And it's just like, empathy absolutely floods in. Then there's a little bit of annoyance, anger, whatever that is, that's emotion that sort of comes through from me. So I then quickly divert back into, things that are uplifting, and things that sort of help reinforce my mind, because I don't want to go down that. And it's not that I don't have the emotion to be connected to it. Yes, I want to be informed and I keep myself informed, but at the same time, I've got to control, you got to control that valve. And where I'm finding immense benefit is the number of conversations that I am having with peers, with influencers, and a lot of people who are a lot brighter and smarter than me, to keep myself informed, but also just engage and connect with other people, is immensely helpful to me. And as you know, when you're preparing for interviews with people, the amount of work you need to do to ensure that that conversation is beneficial for whoever you're interviewing, but also whoever your audience is, that then helps program the mind, because in essence, you want to sort of take the concept and narrative that's in the current media within our industry, and then sort of then prepare that to speak, to chat through with whoever you're interviewing at the time.
hmm
um, and that's what I do. I simply, so I'll go onto LinkedIn, I'll do hashtag workplace, I'll do the same on Twitter, I'll do what is interesting, who are the people that I like to follow, what are they saying, what is their narrative, what are they posting. So for example, whenever I'm going to have a conversation with Christina, what is Christina posted this last week, what's front of her mind, what is the questions that she's trying to tackle, and then that's what sort of leads the next conversation, because it's something that people feel passionate about and actually want to give their own context and viewpoints. So that's how I spend, and that's how I control the media that I receive. Um, and again, but it fluctuates day to day. On a weekend, it's very different. On a weekend, I allow myself to spend more on looking back at my football, my soccer, and I spend time just to let the brain relax and do those things, so that I can relax that little bit more. You
There's no
know.
soccer being played right now, or is there?
No, no, there's not. No, no, no. And it's still, there's still just way off, and it's the same, I'm sure, for your baseball. But yeah, it is it is, you have to control it. So I mean, so today you have Rex Miller again. So you think
Yeah.
about this mindset, controlling this mindset, and sort of advice that people can get. That's going to be a great conversation for people to listen to.
Absolutely. And myself, I'm the audience of one when I do these interviews.
Are
I'm
you going to
I'm
get on the
like,
couch again?
I do. I because he's all about, stress, but he's also, and I've been reading his post as you do. I do the same thing.
Hmm.
Prepare for the presentation, prepare for the interview based on what is my guest going to be focused on. And he does, he's a book author. He's written books about workplace. He's written books about the healthy workplace. He's written books about education and the stress on teachers. And boy, is that something that's relevant today with
Mm,
new virtual learning going on. And he's got a lot of information now. We'll keep it tied to this world of the workplace. But stress, human beings, we're all people. We all have these challenges we're facing. And I personally have dealt with it. And I wonder, he also does this thing, and I don't know how he does it all, but he's got another interesting aspect of his business where he works, he's a consultant. So he works with clients getting through the preparation for and then the managing through a recession. And he's been promoting this for a couple of years now, knowing that there was an inevitable downturn that was going to be happening. But boy, nobody predicted it would be this dramatic, this quick. And I'm anxious to hear because of my shift in mind and kind of focusing on some of the economic issues, just because I feel as a person operating in the world of corporate real estate and the built environment and software, being working for a software company and working with people who are knowledge workers, but working in facilities. Uh, the economic impacts of this and the shifts in how our economy will be changed forever by this is something interesting to me. So we'll try to balance that conversation
mm.
about the human side and managing stress with some practical implications, at least what Rex sees the implications of this will be economically, and how we can get through this recession together if it doesn't even become like a depression. And
Yeah.
I do worry about some of those things, but again, got to stay in the here and now, things I can
Yep.
control. The future will take care of itself.
No, no, it certainly will. And, you reminded me as you went through that and sort of the conversation and your thoughts. If we look back at previous pandemics and what then happened shortly thereafter, so the economy did recover, but actually those people who are on the front lines who went through the experience, so you think about the people, the frontline workers today, when society got back to normal, so to speak, they really suffered PTSD, similar to what somebody in a war zone, because of what they experienced, the emotional turmoil that they're going through, and how do they then control their mind, and how do they get help thereafter? And then there's also the individuals who you think everyone is working from home today. There's going to be some who actually don't want to leave their home. They will not
Yeah.
want to leave their home again. They will not want to get on a public transport system again. They will not want to go and interact with the world again. And how do we help those folks too? So lots of great plays for, and again, it's I'll try to get it, but let's share the link, and even if those people who can't listen to it live can get a recording and
Sure.
follow up, because I think that's a great thing you're doing. But you're busy, man. That's
Appreciate it.
two live streams in 2 days. You must be full of energy.
Oh yeah. No, it's good. It is good.
Good.
It does take it out of me. By the end of the day, by the
Yeah.
evening, I'm exhausted
Toast.
mentally.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to find that new balance and that new routine. I love my music. I need my mind numbing Netflix shows
Yes.
occasionally.
Yes.
I'm trying
Yes.
to find some silly comedies to keep me distracted. But yeah, that we talked about prayer and meditation and getting outside and running and exercise. I have got to keep it all
Yeah.
going, and it's
I gotta
hard.
get
It's not
better too. I
it's
gotta get
not
better
easy for
too,
me.
man.
Yeah.
No, it's not. It's I sit here, we get on. I sit here about 7:30, 7:45, and then I may move sometime before, 6 or 7 o'clock at night, just all depending on what's going on. And I gotta get better at sort of scheduling time for walking, for getting some fresh air. People I'm speaking to are actually now putting that on their calendars and not accepting meetings at those times, which I think is a really smart play.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that we all need to get better at. I know I certainly do. Yeah.
Do it. Get outside today. I
Yeah.
don't know what's it like in New York today.
It looks dull, miserable,
Oh,
but the air
sorry.
is fresh. No, no, the air is fresh.
That's
It's still
true.
good, man. It's still good. It's spring, so there's plenty of fresh air to be had out there. So
All
look,
right,
as
man.
we wrap up, thank you once again, Mike.
Thank
Enjoy your
you.
interview today. Good luck. And
Appreciate that.
I look forward to chatting with you tomorrow.
Let's do it again, Steve. Have a good
Let's
day.
do it again. You too.